to the Jin's Treasure. Today we are going to do another ring. This is going to be just a refresher. It's not going to be the same style as the last ring. That wouldn't be very fun because that was only like 2 weeks ago that I did a ring video. So this one will be a ring. It would just be a different style. It'll be that original style, which I'm now calling the strongband style. For this style of ring, we are going to use 2 different gauges of wire. This is the silver plated copper that is 20 gauge. Amethyst is the brand that I am satisfied with. They have a really nice, it's almost like a white gold complexion. And the one takeaway for this particular spool is that over time it does yellow, but it's kind of cool because it kind of looks like it fades from silver to gold. This is the Motorcraft, and this is the 24 gauge wire that I use. Again, it's silver plated copper, and so 24 and 20 gauge are the gauges of wire that we are going to use for this tutorial. And then for the ring, instead of a bead, we're going to do something a little different, and this is just like a raw amethyst point. And so what we're going to do is come up with a new style of weaving and wrapping this stone, as opposed to threading the wire through, because there is no hole. This is not a drilled bead. Well, it's not a bead by any means, but it's not a drilled crystal either. There's no hole for me to thread the wire through and anchor it in. We're just going to be wrapping it to strap it in. And with that, let's get started. One more thing, one more quick tool introduction, or actually a few more, because I got the pliers here. But if you see my videos, you know the pliers. We got the flats, we got the clips, and we've got the needle nose pliers. And then this cool tool is, if you could see those red numbers, let's see if we can capture the focus. There we go. So you see it's focused on those red numbers there, and those are the different ring sizes. So we're going to shoot for, we'll go for a size 8 today. So the idea is that the ring wraps around this red 8 here perfectly. So yes, now let's get into it. So for the amount of wire that I use, I generally unwind it and just do here, I'll do a quick pause on the video and then flip the camera and then show you. So for the length of wire, I do I call it like drawing the bow, like a bow and arrow, and you just pull out that amount, basically from the length of your arm all the way to your opposite shoulder. And that's the length that you need, and this is again for the 20 gauge wire. So if you've ever had any experience with spools, and maybe you've had some unfortunate experience with spools, then you'll know that it gets a little bit, sometimes if you're not paying attention and you clip the wire, the whole spool will unravel. So my quick tip for avoiding that is to, before I clip anything, is to let that wire slide back into that little threshold and then press down a little bit. Then I get my clips, reach in there and clip the wire. Look, no mess, no unwinding whatsoever. So that's how we get our 20 gauge wire. And then the thing is that we are gonna do, here I'll flip it. Once again, I flip the camera, and then we kiss the 2 tip ends together, and then just do like a zip line, just like a zipper, like we're unzipping a sweater or something. Sweatshirt, I suppose. Sweaters don't have zippers. But then we get a loop on one end, and then the 2 tip ends on the other end. And then we're actually going to kiss that loop and the 2 tip ends together, and then once again zip all 4 of the wires. Now all 4 wires are folded into like the perfectly even lengths. It's not going to be 100% perfect. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. Just needs to be in the ballpark. So I clip, this one is the 2 loops ends, so I clip both of them, and you can clip them one at a time if you prefer, it doesn't really matter, or clip them both. And then you saw I already clipped on the other end, so now I have 4 separated wires, and this once again is that 20 gauge wire. So I'll set that down, and then I'll show you before flipping the camera back over. This is the 24 gauge spool, and I'm going to do the same length once again. Actually, I kind of overshot it, overdrew the bow and arrow, but basically you're pulling out or you're pulling back on the spool, just like as if this were the bow and you're drawing the arrow. And I could even reel that back in a little bit more still, because I could feel it's a little bit overshot. And if you feel like it's a little bit overshot, that's great. There's no rules against overestimating the amount of wire that you use. There, once again, you saw my little trick where I fold the wire into that threshold, press it down, and then I go and clip it. That way the spool doesn't unwind because you've clipped it and now the wire is just freely uncoiling itself. So yes, this is the amount of wire for the 24 gauge wire. And what we're going to do is kiss the two tip ends together, zip line down, and now we have our loop. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, this is where we differ from what we did with the 20 gauge. So let me flip the camera back. All right, so we've got our 4 20 gauge wires, not to be confused with our 24 gauge wire. And this one has that loop at the one end, and we're going to take our 4 20 gauge wires and thread all of them through. And this part is really important. You want to make sure that as you coil the 24 gauge wire, what we're doing is coiling that 24 gauge wire around the 4 20 gauge wires. So you can see how I have it set there. It loops around and that comes back around the backside, and we're just going to continue to coil more. But what's really important is that these 4 wires, they stay pressed flat and parallel to each other. They don't want to be bunched up or getting twisted or anything. You want to make sure that they maintain that flatness. One thing that could help, I generally do this after I get a few coils going already, so you can see as I carefully wound that up, it's still getting a little difficult. So first thing I'll do is sometimes I'll just use my fingertips to kind of slide like I did with that last one that was kind of popping out on that end. And then this is where my flats come in handy. They are going to pinch down right on top of the coiled portion, so you can see that's the end where the wire's out. And now I feel like I have a stronger grip because it's not my rounded or greasy fingers, it's these flat metal clamps that are holding it all in place. I'm not worried about these 4 wires getting twisted, at least not under the clamped portion. So now I can carefully wind with a little bit more ease. And as I continue to coil along, I want to make sure that my coils stay nice and tucked in and tight with each other. And once I get a few coils done, what I'm going to do is release my clamps. So you can see there's the coiled portion underneath there. And I'm just going to move them all the way over and then press down once again. And then continue to coil onwards until I get a good section more coiled, right? And you can see there's that gap between what's been coiled or what's been pressed flat and then what has not been pressed flat. There's that little gap there. So we're just gonna first thing we want to do is tuck in that gap. So with my thumbnail, I'm just gonna slide that in kind of like a slinky and push it in, and then move my flats over and then press the clamp once again. And as I clamp along and you know what I mean, I want to make sure that none of my 20 gauge wires get crossed, right? So you can see they're all still flat and parallel with each other, and I want to maintain that. I don't want my wires, if you can imagine my fingers on my wires, I don't want not even just one of them to fold over like that. Not one, not in the middle, not on the other end. None of that. They want to stay flat. That is imperative to the success of this jewelry making journey. Although I suppose you could find some kind of pattern and design with that, and then make it its own new thing, and then you get your own creative style. But good luck with that. I don't think it would be very comfortable to the feel of it, of the ring, because you will, any of those kinks you will feel, or the person wearing the ring will feel. So as I coil along more, and then I scoot over and press, right, and I'm back to the end and I pressed more, I'm gonna actually rotate the whole thing around, right? Because if you think about it, all this coiled portion here has been eating up the length of this wire, or this end of the same wire, whereas this wire has been, or this end of the wire has been left uncoiled, so it's extra more long than this end. So we want to maintain that balance. We want to think of, like, right here where we started, that's going to be the middle of the whole ring band. So we want to balance it out. We've coiled along this way, now we're going to start coiling along that way. That's why I rotated and flipped the whole thing around like I did. So now we're going to put the clamps back on. I need to figure out a better angle or something, because I can see it's losing focus. Maybe if I go further away, I guess it'll be more clear for you guys. I apologize for that lack of clarity, and I do intend to find a solution to improve the quality of my videos. I have been getting some comments on the quality of my videos, more so specifically that my verbal instructions are amazing and they make it very clear and easy to follow, and I appreciate that. But even if somebody has like some comments and feedback that are not flattery and they're more of like constructive criticism, I would really appreciate that, because that's gonna, especially if it's something like that I am already aware of, like the focus is there's like a lack of focus on the camera lens. I'm aware of that, and I need to, I think what I'm asking is for somebody to drop it in the comments and encourage me to like be like, hey, yeah, I wish that video was more clear and focused, and then that would be like, all right, definitely, like, it's not just me. Other people are saying the same thing, and this is a way for me to improve. Otherwise, my ego could get involved and say like, oh, you know what, it's just me. Nobody else said anything, so it's probably fine. And it's not. Or at least I don't think it is. At least a part of me doesn't think it is. Egos are a funny thing. They're always contradicting us in our thought process. It's like they say like, oh, like the ego, like it's a bad thing, but I don't think the ego is necessarily a bad thing. It's a tool. It's a survival tool, and it's there for a reason. There to protect us and keep us safe. But then sometimes it gets in the way of us trying to grow. I guess that's where it gets in the way. An ego doesn't allow us to grow. It allows us to maintain comfort in who and what we are as is. All right, so I think I coiled a little bit too much on that end now, because I'm looking at the wire ends, and it seems like now this one is the longer wire. So I'm just going to switch that back over and try to balance this out. And then once I have this balanced, let's see if I can, I wonder if I lift up, will that help? Let's try that out. Kind of helped actually, I think. So I'm going to wind a few more coils on this longer end of the 24 gauge wire. And then hopefully once they're balanced, then I'm going to get that rounded ring sizing tool involved and see where we fall on the marker. Are we close to that size 8 mark? All right, so I'm going to press one more time and then stop and check here. So what we're going to do is, with this coiled portion now, that's the strong band. So if you watched my last ring video, you could see how it's completely different. The other technique is called the woven band, where it's like, instead of having 4 20 gauge wires that are flat and parallel with each other, they kind of weave and tangle with each other, and it has a very artistic, and I might even say a little bit more feminine touch to the band, whereas this I find to be I call it the strong band because it's more masculine, and what's more masculine than the word like strong, right? You know what I'm saying? Marketing tactics. Anyways, so we're gonna test, and I could see I am pretty far still, pretty far away from the 8 marker. I am maybe, if I can get a good grip on this thing, I'm about halfway there, so I'll keep going. And I'm noticing too that I am starting to run out of the 24 gauge wires, so maybe in the future I would not pull just like one bow and arrow. I might even do like from full length of you know, full wingspan, having both my arms folded out, but that might be too much. So maybe somewhere like in the middle there. Use your best judgment. Alright, so now you can see I'm getting towards the end of my wire here. So I'm just going to coil a little bit more. I think it won't matter that much because as long as I have enough of the 24 gauge wire to complete the band, that's going to be what's most important. And then the remaining length of the 20 gauge wires, that's what I'll use to weave the stone into the ring. You'll see when I get there. So as you can see, I'm going a lot faster now. And once again, that's because of I'm utilizing the sturdy grip of those flat pliers, and then pressing along and making sure that it's all flat and nothing's twisted up on the inside of those coils. By that, I mean like the 20 gauge wires are not inside those coils getting twisted up. And the way that I do that, even if I like coil this all the way out here, I still want to just chip all the way over there instead of just like releasing here, sliding all the way over and then pressing down, because then that leaves this unflattened part in the middle, and you don't want that because that's going to leave potential for those 20 gauge wires once again to get twisted and crossed on the inside. So let's see. Looks like I still have a little bit more length on that side just to keep it balanced out. So we'll coil a few more times. And press down. And then now we'll check the length. How's it looking? And oh my gosh, we're there. Look at that. Where's the 8? Okay, you see how if I lay these down, there's still a little bit of a gap. They're not quite fully touching where the end of that coil is and the end of that coil, but that's good because that's going to be like that gap where the stone lays in between. So with that, let's get to it and let's see. So it's been a while actually since I've done this style. So let me think. The next step, what we're gonna do, and we're gonna do this on both sides, is you can see how there's, oh, apologize, I knocked over the camera. All right, so let's get the focus in there. All right, so you see how I have all 4, and we're just gonna split, carefully split, making sure that it's 2 and 2, and that the 2 and 2 are the left 2 and the right 2. We're not taking like this middle right and crossing it over to the left. We're keeping it separated just so there's a nice, sexy split. I don't know if sexy is the right word, but it felt right in that moment. So we're gonna do the same thing with the nice split on this side as well. And remember that we want the 2 left to go on the 2 left and the 2 right to go on the 2 right. We don't want the middle right coming over to the left or the middle left coming over to the right. All right, so now that we have those splits, what we're gonna do, I think of it as like a drawbridge, right? And so we have the 2 points on either end. They're just gonna come over and fold over each other. And they're gonna create this pattern where it's a symmetrical pattern. So if this one, like that finger is laying over the top, then this finger over here must lay on the top. We can't have it like this, where these 2 are the bottom and these 2 are the top. We want to have a mix and match so that there's a symmetry happening. All right, so now let's do that. where we fold them over, and then you know you did it right if you have that diamond window in the middle. So the size of the window is actually going to depend on the size of the stone that you're planning to set. The idea is that the window is going to be about the same length or width as the stone itself, right? So right about there for me. And then what I'm going to do is, you see how this is the one that folds over the top. Now I'm going to bend it down, and then the one that's, get the focus right, well, the one that came from underneath the bottom, we're going to fold that up. So you see how that works? And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm realizing too, as I do more and more of these videos, that like one thing I think is helpful is to just make sure I slow down and really articulate each step, because otherwise if I'm going too fast and I'm feeling anxious, it doesn't help it for you guys, because then you guys start to feel that anxious energy and you're like, whoa, hold on, slow down. You know what I mean? Anyways, so from here, the two that folded up, the idea is that those are the two that are gonna fold around. And by the way, I chose this shape of stone specifically that has, one thing, hold on, before we do all this, let me unwind. We forgot to clip off the excess of these 24 gauge wires. So what I like to do is when I clip it, let's see if we can get the focus in there right. So you see how I left a little nub, a little tip nub? I do that intentionally because the idea is that when I clip it at the top, and then I take that nub and pinch tip of the pliers to the tip of the wires, and then curl a little hook in there. You see that hook? And then with my flats, I can just kind of roll that hook so it's really tucked in. There's no pokey tip. I'll do it again with this end. Clip the tip. Where it is. There you go. So I'll go tip of the wires, or tip of the pliers to the tip of the wire, and then curl a hook. And then with the flats, or whatever pliers, whatever, you could even use your fingers if you want, whatever you're most comfortable with. You just want to make sure that that tip tucks right in between that sexy split, just like so. Now we're done with the 24 gauge wires, and those are some scrap wires. Maybe you could turn into some earrings is one option, or like if you're like me, I'm like, okay, I'm throwing that in the resin. We're gonna do some crazy scrap wire resin art, or whatever. And you know, and if you come up with some cool fun creations, post it, share it to me. I would love to see. All right, so now we're back to having that window, and then I was talking about the idea of like why I chose a crystal that kind of has a long body as opposed to, let's see if we could find, maybe this one's a little bit more square, and not to say that these square ones aren't possible either. It's just that I find it to be easier. Especially like raw stones with a bunch of edges and stuff that are like, those edges are great for finding places like little thresholds or nooks for the wire to get like anchored in there. Let me proceed and then you'll see what I mean. So we're gonna place the ring. So I like to place it so that the ring shows, right? So the finger's gonna come through here, right? And so the idea is that I want the stone to sit like this as opposed to this. Although either option is an option, this is just my preference, is to have it sit like that. So it's kind of like pointing in a direction, in the same direction that your finger is pointing. All right, so we'll put that back in there, and then we're gonna weave our wires across the top, coming over the top, right? And then so this is that bottom wire, and I'm gonna kind of bring that over and out, and then allow this wire that's coming over the top to kind of fold in between the band and these under wires, and then I'll just kind of pull on that, make it snug, make it tight, and then we'll do the same thing. So these are the under wires, right, because they came from underneath. Pull those out, and then the over wires that came over the top of the crystal just get wrapped around and folded in between the band and the under wires. Okay, and then if you notice, like what I'm noticing with mine is that it kind of made a almost like a 45-degree angle as opposed to a flat straight angle. That you can just kind of toggle with. Either you could do it now if you want, or generally I'll wait towards the end when everything is complete, or close to the end when everything is almost complete, and then I'll do my final adjustments in order to fully complete this whole process. But we're almost there, really, because we have basically the stone is in place. We have our ring band, although I will put the tool through, because you can see that's not like perfectly round right now. But once I put the tool back on, in fact, that's actually a good idea to use that tool and just see where you're at after you've installed the stone, to make sure, like, oh, is this still lined up at the 8? Mine, it looks like it is, only because I can see that I have, like, there's gappage there and then there's gappage underneath, so I'm not going to fully press until I'm ready. But yeah, so let's continue with the next step, which would be getting those under wires. So we can flip it around to see which one's the under wires. So these coming out over here are the under wires, right? No, these are the under wires. They're all kind of under wires now, because once the over wires folded over the crystal and then wrapped underneath, now they're all under wires, funny enough. But these are the original under wires. So we're going to take those and then just wrap them, and then I'll grab these two as well, and they kind of swim in tandem with each other. So it's like a almost like a yin and yang thing, where it's like the two kois in the pond are swimming in a circle chasing each other, right? And we don't have to do a lot. We really, you could only do it, you only have to do it like one time, just to kind of create like a base or something, so it doesn't look like the stone itself is just resting on top of the ring. It's kind of like woven into the ring. That's the idea. And so I'll go ahead and do it twice, wrapping each one twice, so it's like a full 360, right? So this was the underwire that started on this side. It went full all the way around the stone, and now it's back on this side as well. This is the wire that started on this side, so I just fold a little bit more, and then boom. And one thing too is you want to make sure that, like, you can see, I actually did the bad example. I'll show you the bad example, because this is the bad example. You can see how this wire coming across here, how it folded over the top of this one. So this wire coming over the top is now on the bottom, but this one, which was on the bottom, is now kind of middle bottom. So do your best to make sure that it's all flat and parallel, just like on the inside of our coils, right? So we'll check over here too and say, okay, those look good. And then from here, you are ready to take it. Actually, what we're gonna do is wrap and weave. So here's the band, right? And our wires, our under wires are coming over the band, and then they're gonna get tucked and pop through and come out the other side. And then I'll do that once again with the other side. So once again, these wires, these under wires come all the way around. I'll move these out of the way. So they come all the way around and then over the band, and then they pop through. So they fold and then come out on this end, right? And then we're pretty much done with those wires. Now we can just do the same thing where we clip the tips, but we leave a little bit of a nub. And the idea is, once again, that nub, those two nubs actually, because I clip both of them at the same time. You don't have to do this, but you can. Either ways is good. And then once again, tip of the pliers to the tip of the wire, curling that hook. And then with again, I prefer the flats. You don't have to do the flats. I just find it to be the easiest. We're just gonna press them in so that there's no pokey wire tips hanging out. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side. Clip clip one or clip both. I kind of clipped them short on that one, but we'll see. So then we pinch, tip the pliers to the tip of the wire, and then curl. Right, so then, I don't know if the focus kind of lost it on that. But you see where I have these tips now, and then I'm just gonna kind of crank them or massage them to be tucked in there. So they're nice and flat with the band. And then I'm gonna do, to finish off, I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. So coming out from the bottom, comes over the top of the band, completely concealing any of those pokey tips, and then popping out, weaving through the ring. And then again, making sure that my wires don't get twisted. So these two wires are twisted. I'm just gonna course correct them real quick so they're nice and flat and parallel. And then this one is ready to be clipped. So before I clip it, I'm just gonna do the same thing on the other end, making sure that they don't get, the wires don't cross or twist as they come over. Weave through the ring hole. And then once again, we are ready to clip. So this is that final stage, clipping that and clipping that. And now we have just our nubs. And with those nubs, we pinch tip of the pliers to the tip of the wires, curl that hook. Once again, tip of the pliers to the tip of the wire and curl that hook. And smash it flat or massage it flat. The wire that I work with is pretty soft, so I don't really have to like manhandle it, as they say. And just kind of delicately and slowly push it in. All right, and then now final step is just to examine the stone. It looks actually pretty well centered. It kind of fixed itself. And now we're gonna slide it on, and look at that. Right before the 8, I'm gonna push a little bit more. Actually, kind of, it's almost like a 8 1/4, a little bit shy of a 8 1/2. But that's okay. This ring isn't meant specifically for somebody. Although if you are doing a custom ring, you definitely want to make sure you get their ring size. And that when you make your ring, that it is the right size. All right, and that looks like a pretty damn good ring, if I say so myself. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.